Let's start.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's start. Um, First of all, I would like to thank Professor Fernando Almeida for remembering me, my name, and to talk about some issues about development and innovation. My name is Jose Moraes. I'm a professor in Ishpia, and I made a PhD in sociology in subjects directed related to development and innovation. I will make a presentation where I will talk about sustainable development goals. I will stick to the PowerPoints that I made, but I'm counting on later on your questions, your considerations to make perhaps the presentation a little bit more interesting. Okay, so let's start. Let's say that we are assisting to paradigm shift, a radical change of view on economic growth and development that takes into account, first of all, the environment and people. I will have three main chapters. An introduction where I will talk about some historical facts related to sustainability. I will make some connections between the concept of cooperative social responsibility and sustainability. Saying that it's a vision that is very linked, very connected to the present vision on sustainable development, implying the use of technology. Let's say I will make the connection between previous visions and the nowadays ongoing model or tentative of applying the model of Earth 3. Okay. Some historical advances towards understanding development and sustainability. Nowadays, everybody talks about sustainable development. Everybody talks about in school, in academia, in government, the policies, the political programmers talk about sustainable development. Society in general talks about sustainable development. Innovation. I will make here a presentation in which I will conceptualize innovation, not only in the technical point of view, but I will say that innovation it's a new way of doing things. Innovation is present not only on technology that is used and conducted to the market of products and services, but innovation itself implies a new way of working together, networking together. Basically, innovation is that. When we talk about innovation, we must not talk only about products, specific products and specific services. Innovation can be applied to any human activity domain. Nowadays, we are talking about innovation. We are talking about a new way of doing things, linking it to the idea of development. I will try to approach a little bit the concept of development, separating them a little bit from the concepts of economic growth. But summarizing, I will say that the concept of development, and nowadays when we talk about development, we talk about sustainable development. The concept of development is a broader, or implies a broader view far beyond economic growth. We are talking about benefits, about rising the quality of life of human beings all around the planet. When we talk about development, we are not only talking about economic indicators. We talk, for example, this is one way of approaching development, the exercise of citizenship. When we try to approach the exercise of citizenship, we talk about some issues that persist in, let's say, tormenting humanity. I'm talking about differences between countries in the north of the globe and in the south of the globe, the planet. I'm talking about differences or let's say paradoxes that still are present in the social distribution of work, the lack of training, education opportunities, the persistent, the continuation of social exclusion and poverty. When we talk about exercising citizenship, we're talking about improving the way people position themselves, not only in an economic perspective, in an economic subsistence, but in social. We're talking about social as the social network, the social relationships of people. We are talking about support and participation in institutions. We are talking about improving territory. And when we talk about the territorial aspects, we are talking about environment. We are talking about services. We are talking about everything that can be in a certain region, certain place. And we are talking about what's going on the minds of people, their self-concept, their self-esteem. When we talk about sustainable development, we are talking about the exercise of citizenship. We are talking about rising the level, let's say like this, rising the level in which every person in the globe, in the planet, positions itself in this subsistence. This is the way to approach development, taking in account people. I must make a reference to the concept of social quality, a concept that is still in use in European language, European Commission language. This concept is used in political programming, and let's say, sorry, I pressed one. And let's say, and resuming that what happens to a person, his biographical processes, these personal processes, are related to social global processes, systems, institutions, and organizations, and community configurations and groups. And we are approaching what? Socioeconomic security, socioeconomic aspects. We are talking about social cohesion. What this means is making shorter the gap between poor people and rich people, equal opportunities in institutions, and empowering people. All these aspects, and particularly socioeconomic security, implies the environmental issue. Okay. One other concept that I would like to address in terms of what is built nowadays regarding the concepts of development. I would like to talk about social capital, the notion of social capital, human value. Human value, social capital must be addressed as something that is collectively participated, collectively built. We must talk about building value, human value, in a perspective of a community, not in the perspective of isolated persons or isolated groups. Something that must be participated and shared by citizens in communities. And as you all will see, the 17 sustainable development goals that I will talk in a few seconds, in a few minutes, are much related to this notion of building collective social value. An appointment and reference to, let's say, necessary reference to the concept of cooperative social responsibility. It was a concept that was approached, created, developed since the 50s in the past century. They are only thinking about the longevity of companies in a certain area, in a certain region, but they took into account in social responsibility. They took in account the two things that are being taken in account in the sustainable goals, in the growth, in the development model that is advocated today. They thought about people and environment as making part of the stakeholders, interested parts, everybody, and every aspect must be took into account when we talk about offering a service and offering a product. The organization is not a strange body that is put into a certain environment and that uses people and environment to make profit. It's not only that. The way to build trust in a certain organization or corporation is taking into account people and environment, not only the economic aspects. That's why I mentioned this social responsibility, cooperative social responsibility, because it's a perspective 70 years old, more than 70 years old, that makes a way of understanding the models of development that are defended today. When we talk about sustainable development, we're talking about development in the medium scenery of time, in a long-term scenery of time. We must talk about economic development, but also social development, environmental conservation, eco-efficiency, and socio-environmental justice. Environment is not something that must be used and let's say avoiding in the future that local population has a good use, a good benefit from their own resources. And this is a problem that for local populations still around the world that are not able to defend and enjoy, let's say, what their local environment has to offer, because foreign and sometimes local companies, let's say, destroy their natural resources. Some historical facts, not trying to annoy you with these historical facts, but let's say that around the year 2000, the turn of the century, humanity and some institutions, I would say the main, the United Nations and the European Union, the European Commission, have started to take more and more seriously the question of environment protection and also, let's say, people protection. Linking still to the notion of the social responsibility, efforts have been made all around the world to make some norms that organization must follow and to comply rules of environmental, let's say, preservation, defense, improvement. The 2030 agenda. In resume, and in shortly, or in a few phrases, what can I say? That 215 was a turn point. We have nowadays a commitment that is signed by 193, let me just, 193 countries, in which they have committed themselves to give permission, let's say, to a Earth 3 development model, a smarter development model. And this connects us not only to technology use, but we are talking about a radical new view on economic growth and human well-being. Normally, when we talk about development, we talk about structural change. And I will say that we are facing some hard challenges because we are talking about looking to the planet, looking to people, looking to the economic growth in a completely different perspective. This agenda is summarized, this 2030 agenda is summarized in 17 sustainable development goals that I will talk about, that I will mention. But I think that the world, I will say it in the future, the world has never seen such a global commitment in, let's say, saving the planet from the apocalypse. We are talking about in reason we are talking about that the possibility of reaching a point of no return to the planet if we insist in current development economic growth models. When we talk about the 2030 agenda, we are talking about these 17 sustainable development goals. More important than saying them, telling each one of them, I would say that the importance is a linked view on all these objectives, perspecting them as being completely linked, and I would say that perhaps this last issue, this last goal, the 17th goal, partnership for the goals, perhaps it's the most important because the world, we are not talking about what's inside a country or inside the European Union. We are talking about a new networking model worldwide. This is the greatest challenge. We are talking about reducing poverty. I will tell them each quickly all of them. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent worth and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, strong institutions, partnerships for the goals. How will humanity solve all these things, all these 17 different goals? There's only one way, working together, and it's not easy. Let's see this statement. You will find this contents that I have that I am exposing here. You will find them very easily in the references that I have later on the presentation. You can access this information very easily. Let's see this statement. Transformation is feasible. Agenda 2030 and conventional growth are incompatible. We must talk about a new way of growing. And we can say that we have four possible pathways to the 2015 scenario. We are talking what's going to happen in about 30 years. We have goals to attain in 230, 240, and we are yet perspecting 250. Let's talk about these four models, four ways, and let's make some considerations on the only way possible, that it's The only, let's say, sustainable model that is the smarter model. 4 possible pathways to 250, with near universal acclaim from 193 countries. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals came into force early in 260. For the first time in human history, the entire international community now has a shared plan and common goals for development to 230. On this basis, there is a widespread sense of optimism and hope for the future. With such a clear plan as a shared foundation, the joint attention of governments and intergovernmental bodies becomes set on trying to attain all sustainable development goals by 230. Resuming the four models, let's say that they regard five dimensions, five political dimensions regarding growth, poverty, unemployment, and inequality, energy, food, education, and gender. What are these four models? I will not specify them entirely, but I will say that we can go just as we are going, and we are not solving most of the greater problems that humanity has. We can bet on a faster model using technology, but the model will be still the same, and the long-term results, especially on people and on environment, will be the same as in the model same. The harder will imply changes and technology changes, but there is a difference between the harder model and the smarter model. The harder model is an individual country model. And in the smarter model, we are talking about a plan that is shared and put together by all the countries. And we are talking about some things that seem very natural in the smarter model, but they will be very difficult to attain, because we are talking about changing people and changing mentalities, and that's not easy. Normally, changing history, it's not easy. We are talking about one approximation in what we call in Portugal PIB, in the indicators of economic growth in poorer countries and richest countries and emerging economies. That is something that most people don't think about it, especially when we talk about the poorer countries, approximating their growth to the richest countries. It's not easy. We are talking about a social, a very deep change that I think that will face great opposition. Active redistribution of the wealth created in the world until 10% of the richest people in the world control less than 40% of income. This is not easy. Rapid growth rates in renewables, wind and solar, and electrification. We are talking about putting aside in the most possible ways, the use of fossil fuel. Let me just say you this fact. We are talking about hybrid cars, electrical cars, but humanity has never been so dependent on fossil fuels than it's now. We are totally, absolutely dependent on fossil fuels, and that has to change. And this is not going to be easy. Shifts in food chain. There are some interesting ideas. Um, some interesting ideas about the food chain, and basically we are talking about making food available to, let's say, affordable prices to everybody in the world. This is not easy. And investment on education, gender equality, health. Um, we are talking about making available to everybody worldwide, to everybody, to most people, some services that normally we can think that only people that can afford them must access them. Later on, if you want, we can talk about this. But we are talking about remember the concept of the exercise of citizenship that I talked to you about. We are talking about the access to and positioning of people regarding education, justice, habitation, housing, and health, education, justice, housing, for example. Make it not dependent, making not dependent this access by the market logic, let's say. This is not easy. We are talking about deep changes in the way of living, let's say. I will show you very quickly these images. These images, we are talking about business as usual, what we see, efforts, but isolated, isolated efforts possible in some regions, some countries, towards jobs and education, clean water, for example. The faster model, we have more growth based on technology, but it's still something that is only made possible in few countries. Not everybody has access to these means of development. The work harder. We are talking about using in a rational way, let's say a rational way of the resources, but there is a difference between the harder model and the smarter model. When we talk about the smarter model, we are talking about an effort that is a commitment of the planet in itself. We are not talking about isolated efforts. We are not talking about different worlds. We are talking about one world, only one world. All the policies that are put into practice must have in perspective the whole planet. And now, before I advance, I would like to make just one idea of giving one example that shows us that Development, the use of technology, going to a smarter model is a worldwide problem. And even the most rich countries must face it. We are now dealing with a problem that is people fleeing, trying to escape Africa and walking uh, to Europe, basically to Europe. This is a symptom that something is not good. These countries, these African countries, must have conditions uh, to make life possible for the populations inside these countries. The richer countries, European Union, can look away for a little bit, but this problem happens every hour. We receive in European beaches every day thousands of people fleeing from their countries. Development must be seen as a global project. Otherwise, this situation will be unsustainable even for the richest countries. I'm talking about this aspect of Saharian world, sub-Saharan world, because it is taken into account in the smarter model. Because we live, just making a quick reasoning. We are in a world that has many technological changes, but we can make this phrase as being a truth. That is, everything changes, but really nothing changes. We cannot live in a world, and when we see technology and changes brought by technology, and we don't see the greater problems of people going away. Okay. I had contemplated here some reasoning made by the work group that has put together the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and what they do is basically propose a new methodology with several scenarios that take into account several variables that show us that we can attain goals and go to a predicted greener, safer way of living, let's say way of living, and a not attended scenery because these goals were not achieved. Basically, they made make a new perspective on social, on economic growth, and they say what must be done at least to attain some goals that make possible this global effort to go on. I will not go inside this scheme, but basically it shows that it shows that we can make. I'm going to skip this slide, but I will go through it later. They say that we can make we can have a new model on gross domestic product. we can increase gross domestic products based not only on the traditional primary sector or secondary sector. There are other sectors that can be developed. There are influences of gross domestic products that reach people everywhere around the world. This means to say that if we have great discrepancies, great differences in the gross domestic product between countries, it's not globally a good thing. And there are limitations. Let's say physical, biochemical, physical limits, and they must be on the planet, and they must be put into account. We cannot make calculations on growth not having into account the chemical impacts on the planet. The planet must be seen as a host to humanity that has limits. The Earth 3 model that these 17 sustainable development goals want to achieve are based on five major policies, let's say. Five major policies. Accelerated renewable energy growth, sufficient to halve carbon emissions every decade from departing from 2020. Accelerated productivity in food chains, improving productivity by at least 1%, more 1% per year. New development models in poorer countries, following models such as South Korea, China, Scandinavia, Ethiopia, or Costa Rica. This is something that it's mind-troubling for some people in the world. It's not easy to adopt these models. Active inequality reduction, ensuring that the richest, I already told you this when I talk about the smarter model, but in these policies, I talk about a fewer aspects. Active inequality reduction, ensuring that the richest 10% take no more than 40% of income, and investment in education for all, gender equality, health, family planning. Family planning is fundamental. Oppositions to the model. Where can obstacles appear, rise? This model will only success if governments are strong in their policies and national policies of different countries are combined. Obstacles. Distrust of central government rules. People don't trust the government and the governmental planning. More nationalism that discredits global cooperation. Ideological opposition to redistribution, particularly in the Anglosphere. And if you want, we can talk a little bit about this in the end. Market fundamentalism that opposes government's work on market design. These are basically ideological obstacles, but they are real. They are not only ideas. They are ideas that can really impeach, let's say, this global plan of sustainable development. When I talk to you about Africans running away from their country, I was remembering this planning on the smarter model that shows that in the long term, we are talking about 250 scenario, we are talking about a confluence between economies or let's say indicators of attaining these 17 sustainable development goals. We are talking about a confluence, not a divergence. The smarter model will make this convergence possible. Locally, we are talking about the 17 sustainable development goals made in a international approach, but they are already put into place, talking about them as local sustainable development goals. I have here two links that perhaps I will not show, but they will be here in the presentation if you want to look at them. And you will see that each country, or a few countries that appear on the internet with their platforms, a few countries have created and established platforms where different organizations in their countries can expose their projects and their programs, their projects in connection with the 17 sustainable development goals. If you look into these local sustainable development goals, you will see that the concepts of the terms of people, peace, planet, partnership, networking, and prosperity appear absolutely linked to each other. It's a model of the 5 Ps. You already heard about it. If you want, you can take a look at the Portuguese site, very interesting. And we are talking about initiatives such as the giving a prize to the best projects regarding to the 17 sustainable development local development goals. I'm speaking to you. I'm from higher education institution. You guys, you people, you colleagues are from this world of higher institution schools, teaching schools, education organizations. What's the importance of the smart model to us? I think that mainly this model gives us the structure in which we can locate ourselves in terms of what is our educational and investigational offer in the community, making us making institutions structurally positioned in their regions, in their territorial locations. We are talking about guidelines that that makes us think that our action is not an isolated action. We must do it complying with goals of the region, goals of the country, and international goals. And we can say that all investigation and development (IND) can be directed by this Earth 3 model. All the language that we use nowadays, spin-offs, academic spin-offs, improvement and innovation, top-down, bottom-up, national and international technological networks, preparing people to the jobs, even the labor market, and preparing to the labor market must take into account these objectives. And basically, I think that the term "the revolution" lies here in this word: collaborative, local, national, and international perspective in development of knowledge offer, everything that can be intended in the knowledge offer. Final reflection. Let's look at my last phrase. Are we dreaming or what? We are talking about minimizing the use of fossil fuel, minimize the gap between humans regarding citizenship, a global democratic government instead of governance, reinforce state action despite market pressure on blind profit, make a global policy regarding development and innovation, redistribute creative wealth, comply locally with planet goals, build and participate locally on a global innovation network. Well, can this be possible? Are we dreaming? Is this feasible? Well, I will be open to all your questions and thinking about a little bit about these questions. Is it possible? Well, we have 3 minutes. I don't know, but I will end my presentation. You will see most of the contents of this exposition in this book, and it's here. You can access it very easily on the internet. And thank you. I will, if you want, you can ask me some questions. Is it possible for me to talk with you a little bit?
We have here, I'm sorry, Professor, we don't have much time, but we have some observations and questions in the chat room.
Okay, I'm seeing them.
Yes, I don't know if you can quickly address them. We don't have much time, or if maybe they're already answered. If you'd like to talk to, or maybe Rui would like to expose.
Let me say this scenery. I will make this in a short. I think I will answer all the questions with this short sentence. We need financing on the projects. We need rules. I think we need laws, specific laws. that countries, populations, organizations must attend to. And when I talk about having the means to do this, we must have resources, we must have people that make the role of mediators in the process. But I think higher institutions, higher education institutions can be very good mediators in the process. But in some way, the rich countries must pay for the development of poor countries. Basically, the message is this. Okay, there's no way, there is not a different way of making things happen. Rich countries must pay the development of poor countries.
Well, yes, thank you very much, Professor. We're running out of time, but I believe that you're available if any questions can come up afterwards. Yes. I believe, right? So if anybody would like them to contact you, we can facilitate that and provide maybe an email or something just to get you in touch if someone you want to talk to you about this. I believe that's not a problem, right?
Yes, this smarter model is a process. It's not an easy process. You can access information about it in the internet easily. But I think the challenge is to participate in the model. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. And we will be now changing our link to the next session. So we'll be ending, and thank everybody for being here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.